Welcome, friends and listeners, friend and inquisitors. I'm Jake.
I'm Jax. We are your Aeon analysts. Join us this week as we dive into the Copper Mind.
Welcome back to
Another week.
The Copper Mines, pretty much.
What is this? Episode something?
8?
7? 8?
I think 8.
Welcome to another episode. We
read 3 more chapters of Elantris this week.
Yep.
And marked them up and studied them.
And got a couple blue lines.
Oh, did we?
Yeah. I mean, kind of.
Okay. I don't think I blue lined anything.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I just missed it.
That was foolish of you.
Okay. Maybe I just For those of you that don't know, blue line in this podcast basically means a wider Cosmere connection.
So something that connects outside of the Book of Elantris, not necessarily just in book connections.
Yes. So Jax apparently found some blue lines.
So did Jake. He just wasn't paying attention to them.
Probably. I think it's actually hilarious that we unintentionally made our Cosmere connection reference as something in the Cosmere. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, interesting.
Because with Steel Sight
reveals
blue lines. Yeah.
I like it.
So we just did it because we just chose chose the blue highlighter as our Cosmere highlighter, and it just happened to be blue. But now that I'm
That's
thinking
hilarious.
about it, I'm wow.
Hadn't thought about it at all.
Destined. How was your week?
My week was pretty good.
That's good.
Not too much to report. Work was good. Finalized the settlement with the insurance for my car.
Oh, that's right.
So they deemed it a total loss, so they're just gonna pay me out a paycheck, and still waiting on that paycheck. So
hopefully.
They told me I was gonna have it Thursday or Friday. It's Sunday, still don't have it, and they told me I have to have my rental back by Tuesday because they only can give me 3 days from when I get my settlement.
But you haven't gone it.
But I haven't gotten my settlement. So we'll see. I'll end up calling them on Tuesday because tomorrow's a holiday. So I assume they're not, finalizing anything tomorrow. So I'm assuming I'm not getting my settlement till Tuesday.
Yeah.
How about your week?
My week was good. My week, just work, and then I had a very busy weekend.
Yeah.
And now it's Sunday, and I go back to work tomorrow. I don't get tomorrow off, unfortunately.
That's so unfortunate. I do. And typically we record on Fridays or Saturdays, but we've both had incredibly busy weekends. I was at a conference all weekend.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and with that in mind, the fact that we are filming this on Sunday afternoon and releasing it tomorrow morning.
I am editing it tonight and scheduling it to release. I usually release them at midnight.
Yeah.
So
we have been really trying to find a point in time where we would have the ability and the time to shoot 2 episodes so that we can get ahead a week so that we don't keep running into situations like this.
Yeah.
And we just haven't been able to make it happen. So what we're going to end up doing is this week's episode, we're actually going to split into 2 parts, and we're only going to release part 1 this week. This is something we've already done one time because I had a week where I was going to be out of town and we weren't going to be able to record. We're going to do that same thing. We'll release part 1 this week and release part 2 next week, but we're still going to film a new episode next week so that we can get ourselves a week ahead and get caught up. Jake has now officially put me in charge of the YouTube portion, which is only fair because Jake does everything else.
Just a little bit. Jax contributes in his own way.
Jax is here on air, and Jax funded.
Jax buys a lot of our equipment.
I funded all the equipment and did the upfront costs.
So give and take.
Yeah, give and take.
We both have our roles in this podcast, but he is right. We're gonna release this episode in 2 parts, and we're gonna split them up a week just so we can have a little bit of breathing room, because I am seriously, I'm going to have to, I also have plans tonight. So I'm going to be leaving here, probably going straight to my plans, and then when the plans are done, editing and probably basically releasing it right away because it might be
past midnight.
It might be past midnight,
and then getting up for work,
and then waking up at 5 a.m. for work tomorrow. So we're trying to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room so this sort of situation doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And I think it'll also maybe help some of our listeners catch up because I think only like 20-ish% of our listeners like are listening to the episode when it drops Monday.
Okay.
Or Monday or Tuesday. So like if we're slowing it down a little bit, it lets other listeners maybe help them to catch up, whether they want to or not.
Yeah. And one thing that we want to do is make sure that we get all caught up with YouTube and everything by the time we're done with Elantris.
Yes.
By the time we're done with Elantris and start into Mistborn, we want to be 100% caught up, have our flow, be releasing an episode a week that drops Monday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere, and just keep that flow from there. So
yeah, so forgive us of our
shortcomings,
our lacking of consistency here, but it's okay because we do this for fun.
Yeah.
So you can't really judge us that much, right? We don't get paid for this. So let's hop right into Raylan's chapter. Which is a beefy one.
Dude, beefy chapter. This chapter is about the length, page-wise, as our entire set of 3 chapters from last week.
Yes.
Our set of 3 chapters was like 22 pages. This chapter in and of itself is like 20.
But I would almost say like this is going to take even longer because like there's some important stuff in these chapters that we have to talk about. And apparently some blue lines that I subconsciously missed.
Unless we read different chapters.
I don't know, dude.
We're on chapter 25, yeah?
Yeah, chapter 25, which has the chapter heading Aeon as Aeon Ale, or Allah.
Beauty or handsomeness.
Beauty or handsomeness. We've seen it once so far. Well, has his name come up yet?
Yeah.
Okay. But then we've seen it twice because I think there was a maid that also had it, but she had another Aeon in her name. And we like...
Ciela?
I think it was Miela.
Okay. Yes. Which is Aeon Mie.
Yeah.
For thoughtfulness or caring.
But also has Ale.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Anyway. But we have seen Cianaelin's name.
Yes, I think once. Just mentioned.
Yeah.
We haven't ever seen him on screen yet.
Yes, we have. Cianaelin?
No.
Didn't we? Oh.
Ash mentions that he threw him out of a chapel.
Oh.
And that's all we've seen so far.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I was getting identities mixed up between Omen and Cianaelin.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's totally my... I was like, dude, we've seen him
several
times.
Well, I was saying, we will see him quite a bit towards the end of the book.
Yes.
But we've only...
But yeah, I do think we had his name mentioned.
Yeah, Ash... It's the only time, is Ash mentioned that he threw him out of a Karathi chapel once. For reasons unknown. Interestingly enough. Anyways.
Is it just because of the
relation
the Theons between, the relation between the Theons and Elantris?
I feel like that's pretty extreme.
I think so.
Especially since the Karathi church is all about accepting...
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing, is acceptance and, like, loving everyone. I can't imagine the head of the Karathi church throwing out a Sion just because of its relation with Elantris.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah. Anyway, into the chapter we go. We start off this chapter, and Raoden is helping Serene unload food from the cart.
Yes.
So they've set up their agreement between Marishi and Karada and Serene, who she assumes is Karada and Aendon.
A lot of names you just spit out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're basically witnessing more of Serene's widow's trial.
Yeah.
So they're distributing food in Elantris and everything.
I love the opening line. because it's just very casual and very like you can see the relationship that Raoden's like trying to like form and build. So he just starts off by saying, I think perhaps that she needs this food as much as we do. And he's referring to Torina.
Yes.
Who's skinny. We know.
Skinny. Yeah. Which is kind of funny because she's Ahane's daughter, who is obese.
Yeah.
So, yeah, funny line from Raoden there. Throughout the first bit of this chapter, you'll see Raoden honestly like want to start having a relationship with Serene, but she's very much like, you are the enemy. I am not going to fraternize, sort of thing.
Yeah, because she's coming in here every day.
Yes.
And so Raoden said, it seemed that a week's worth, so this has already been going on a little bit.
Yeah.
A week's worth of distributing food together had softened her hatred of him somewhat, but she was still cold. She would respond to his comments, even converse with him, but she would not let herself be his friend.
Yeah.
And I really loved that, like, because this is Raoden's, like, perspective and thoughts. And I love that, like, not let herself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what Serene is doing. It's like, her mentally, she's like, I can't, do this. But, like, emotionally, she would be Raoden's friend.
She wants to.
Yes.
She wishes that she can, shoot a quip back at him whenever he tries that, but she won't let herself.
Yeah.
But Serene's, is like, Raoden, well, doesn't say Raoden, but she's talking to Raoden, and she's like, be nice to her. And they're talking about Torina because she's the only woman who would agree to come into Elantris with Serene.
Yes.
And only because she had Shuden ask her to. But hey, she made it in.
If flirting is what it takes to make it happen, then go for it.
I think Serene unknowingly started that budding relationship. Because I don't think it would have happened if Serene didn't have Shuden ask her to come into Elantris. Because we know those two kind of like...
Yeah, they end up together.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
I think Serene
unintentionally just like match made.
Which is even funnier because like throughout the rest of the book, well, maybe not the rest of the book, for a little bit, she's very jealous of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not so much that she like would want Shuden, because it says in Serene's chapter here that Shuden wouldn't be a good match for her.
Right.
But she's just jealous of the relationship in general. Just like the happiness, the affection, the love, and all that stuff.
Similar.
She's missing out on.
Yeah, similar to when she saw Lukel and Lukel's wife. This is supposed to be your job on the podcast.
Oh, wait. I have no idea what Lukel's
It's something that has a Y. No, a J in it. Because we mispronounced it, but then, like, she's Svordish, Svordish, which means the J would be pronounced as a Y.
Yeah. And that's great and all, but I can't remember for the life of me.
Yammy? No, that's weird. Yammy? Yala, thank you. I kind of like Yammy better. But similar to when Serene saw Yala and Lukel together, she was just very jealous of them having each other because, she doesn't
she's married to a dead man.
Yes. Quote unquote.
Yeah. In her eyes.
So, samesies.
Yes. And so as they're going through here, Raoden's kind of reflecting on his friends because she's been bringing all of Raoden's friends into Elantris to feed food. Nobody's recognized him.
Yeah.
And he's been guarding against them recognizing him by putting on a different kind of air or accent or whatever it be while he's speaking with them, not letting himself like talk to them as he normally would.
Yeah.
But he gets to drop that with Serene, which he is, enjoys. And he's kind of using it as a test to see like, would we have been compatible, in real life? So he lets himself be himself with Serene because she didn't know him, but he has to like guard himself against all of his friends.
Yeah, so he's on guard, but he does notice that like his friends all respect Sereni.
Yeah.
And he muses, he's like, it took me weeks, if not months.
Years.
Was it years?
Raoden could only smile. It had taken him it had taken him years to earn these men's trust. Sereni had done it in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
Which I wrote in there, actually. He's not giving himself enough credit. Because Sereni would never have gotten these men to follow her without the groundwork that Raoden laid.
Right.
So it's not like she just came in and did everything he did in a matter of weeks. No, she just was able to build upon what he had built.
Yeah.
And insert herself. Not same.
Not same, but she did get them all to trust her.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah, she could have inserted herself into the group and, like, had, like, the authority, but the fact that they all, like, trust and respect her is still, like, good job, Sereni.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say, though, Raoden's kind of talking about how, like, none of them recognize him, and he says that his voice was different.
Did he?
Yeah, he goes, he couldn't blame them for not recognizing him. He barely recognized himself anymore. With his wrinkled skin and spindly body, even his voice was different. Which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting.
Is it just like the vocal cords are like, they stay strained? So it's almost like if you talk too much, you know how you kind of lose your voice?
Yeah, if you talk too much, you lose your voice. I also feel like if you don't talk, you kind of the same thing happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would be more of where they're getting all this muscle atrophy.
Mm-hmm.
It might be kind of the same with the vocal cords. His vocal cords have just like gone soft as if he's not speaking, maybe.
So I just thought it was interesting that he literally says like he doesn't sound the same as he used to.
Yeah.
So it also helps with like no one really recognizing him.
Yeah.
He goes on to just say that like Sereni impresses him quite a bit. But yeah.
Yeah.
Moving
he says
on.
She was impressive in every attribute, intelligent, beautiful, strong. Now, if only he could convince her not to hate him.
Yeah.
You know? And then it says something interesting here. Raoden sighed and turned back to the work. Except for Shuden, all the day's nobles were new to the process. Most were minor noblemen of little import, but there were a couple of important additions. Duke Telri, for instance.
Yeah.
And I was reading this and I was like, why on earth is Duke Telri here? Sereni is undermining the entire ploy to put Duke Telri on the throne, and he's here in Elantris, like, helping that fact?
Yeah,
What's that about?
I also marked that, and I was kind of like, what is his motive for being there? So he hasn't come out as like a Dorethi supporter yet. Like he's still
Right.
Piously, is that the word?
Piously,
thank you. Like attends his Karathi Sunday, I don't know, church meetings.
Yeah, his Karathi services.
And so I can almost, I almost have to say like it's probably just
maybe he's saving face
to keep face. Yeah, save face. Where, you know, it's a very Karathi thing that Sereni's doing, and she's inviting all the noblemen, so it kind of look weird for Telri to just like say no, especially when like Duke Royal has already done it.
Yeah,
and like he's too prideful to not go at least.
Okay,
and make an appearance would be my guess. Probably
I can accept that. However, he's not helping at all.
No, yeah,
he brought a manservant because they're not supposed to like. It's supposed to be, you know, X amount of people plus the guards.
Mm-hmm.
Duke Telri brought a manservant, which I'm sure took up one of the spaces, and Duke Telri is just standing there, and he has the manservant filling in for him, which I was just like, dude, I don't like this guy.
We get a little bit of history with Raoden and Telri, because Raoden asked Telri once upon a time to like see if he would join the group that he made, and Telri was just like, how much are you gonna pay me for my support? And Raoden just walked away, and Telri just laughed.
Yeah.
Which tells you about how much you need to know about Duke Telri right there.
Pretty much
summed up. So
Raoden has kind of taken upon himself the role of like making everybody comfortable.
Yeah,
He
acclimatizing new groups.
Yes.
To Elantris.
Yes, he did it with the first group. Well, it was actually
With the
second group.
Yeah,
Because the first group was just all of Serene's, inner circle. The second group that came in, Raoden's, like, they would still be
frozen.
Like, frozen at the cart if he hadn't come in and warmed everybody up. And so he says he approached with a smile, introducing himself and shaking hands, mostly against the owner's will. However, their tension began to wane after just a few minutes of mingling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, this is not their prince. This is some random Elantrian, but he just has this ability to put people at ease.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like super cool and interesting to learn about Raoden.
I thought it was funny how like it says right after what you just said, it says they could see that there was at least one Elantrian who wasn't going to eat them. I think it's funny. And then it also goes, and none of the other food distributors have fallen to the Shaod, so they could dismiss their fears of infection.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how that was like still a fear for people, but it just shows you about like how much the common people don't interact with Elantris.
Yeah.
It's like if you just had like anything similar to what Serene's doing, like any ventures into Elantris at all, no one would ever think that the Shaod was, like a disease that could be passed on.
Yeah.
But they don't, so they didn't. And so they don't. And now they do.
They don't, so they didn't, so they don't, and now they do.
But now they do. They clock it. They stand on business. Moving on.
Raoden remarks, it was odd to him participating in the event that was singularly destroying everything he had worked to build. And I was like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I marked that line too, because I was like, it is very like ironic.
Yeah.
That he's like helping out so much on it's literally tearing down his whole month he's been in Elantris. Everything he's built.
Yes.
Just darn.
However, it does say that Marishi and Karada were receiving plenty of like goods. In exchange for, because the whole agreement was, hey, we will let you come feed the people of Elantris and we won't hold anybody back. In exchange, you have to give us all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so Serene's been supplying them with
stuff
for sure. We'll get into that in a second.
But it says like a little bit past, like Raoden would have to do a great deal of rebuilding after Serene's trial finished. But overcoming the setbacks would be worth the effort.
Yes.
So, assuming, of course, that he survived long enough.
So yeah, it is a setback. It has kind of torn down New Elantris, but when she finally leaves and everybody remembers New Elantris and comes back, they'll have all this stuff and they can rebuild better than they were before. So he understands the setback, but yes, that last line that he survived long enough, because Raoden is in pain, bro.
Raoden he talks a bit about like his pain in this chapter. I don't know if it's on this page or a little later.
Well, it says here, as far as he could tell, his pain was accelerating much more quickly than anyone else's. A scrape on his arm felt like a gash running from shoulder to fingers, and his once stubbed toe blazed with a fire that ran all the way to his knee.
Yeah.
It was as if he had been in the Elantris a year, not a single month. And then it says, or maybe his pain wasn't stronger. Maybe he was just weaker than the others. And I saw that. I was like, oh, Raoden.
No, bud. No. Wouldn't you rather just believe that it's like supernaturally stronger than the others and not that you're weaker? But I mean, who would believe that, So, yes. And we know that it is supernaturally stronger. Like he is not weaker. I would even go as much to say that you put most of the other characters in this book in Raoden's place, they already crack.
Not making it.
Yeah. I would think maybe Hrathen might be able to withstand.
He'd have to have a good purpose because he's questioning his whole shtick right.
He would have to have a good purpose. Serene cracks.
Iadon folds at the stub.
Dude, Iadon chooses the Taeain one. He
walks in and
he's like
mad.
No way. And he either goes mad through like chooses to go mad or like becomes a beast. He chooses one of the other options.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's any like maybe Shuden.
I was thinking Shuden and Eondel.
Okay.
Maybe
Seolin, dude.
I love Seolin so much.
Seolin's a really good soldier.
Yeah.
But if he started out and like he was dealing with door attacks, I don't know. If Raoden was like still there to give him so much purpose, and if he had the purpose before, like,
and I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Raoden gives purpose and has given himself purpose where nobody in Elantris, had done that other than Kurata to an extent.
Yeah.
But Kurata's purpose was very
single-minded,
very like direct and not big picture.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the only reason that Raoden, because I think even Raoden, without any purpose, at this point already cracks,
Well, he even says later in this chapter to Galadon, he was like, if it weren't for you, dude, I would have thrown myself off a building long ago.
Yeah.
And so, like, Raoden's strong, and he has purpose, and that's really all that's carrying him. He even, like, I feel so bad for Raoden, too, because he, like, when he talks about going Hoid and stuff, he almost talks a bit, like, welcomely.
Yeah.
Almost like, I'll finally just be able to, like, give in and, like, not have to care and worry and stuff. And it's like, oh, come on, buddy. Come on, Lord Spirit. Hold on. Just one more month. One more month, please. Oh, man.
So Galadon comes up, brings his sack. Raoden swaps it out for a sack that's filled with 5 times the typical allotment. And we also learn that Seolin, Marishi, and Kurata would also come, which doesn't make sense, actually, now that I think about it.
Wait, why?
Because Seolin is defending them right now.
Seolin
it does. Actively in a battle defending them right now.
Yeah, that's a slip up.
So I don't know how Seolin shows up.
Seolin would not be coming to get the food. He is actively defending the courtyard from Sheor's men.
Yes.
So
who are actively trying to get at this offering.
So might have just slipped through the editing process, but Seolin should not be named here.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Good catch.
But Galadon, Marishi, Kurata, and I assume Raoden as well slips himself a bag at some point.
Oh yeah.
Where they all it's got like 5 times the normal allotment, and they're gonna set aside what they can, and the rest of it they give to the Hoey. Now, Sereni's got no idea that they're doing this.
Yeah.
She's going to find out later in the book, and it's going to be part of the whole scene that breaks your trust.
Yeah. It's like this on top of finding out they're withholding food from people.
Yeah.
Sheor's men.
Mm-hmm.
Like those two things combined, they happen at the same time.
And it's just awful because they're giving food to the Hoid.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they're doing with these. Now, like, I can understand Sereni's perspective on it.
Yes.
But she just doesn't have the information. She doesn't have the facts. And it just sucks.
It sucks for like all of 4 chapters, I think. And then she gets thrown into Elantris and she finds all this out.
Yeah. And then she feels bad for all the material she gave him.
It does suck. Like when you're reading, it's not in these chapters, but when you do read that chapter, it's like, no, dude, no.
Yeah.
But oh well. So they've been giving food to the Hoid, and it says that some of them still recognize food, which is, I think, is interesting. Like, I guess being Hoid is more a spectrum? Question mark?
I'm going to have to say yes.
Like, I feel like it would have to be, like, if some of them recognize food and will eat it, maybe not like on their own, but will like swallow it and stuff, and some of them just don't, It almost has to be a spectral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. They've been feeding the Hoid in hopes that like regular meals will start to return some of their sanity or anything.
Yeah.
And it says here, like, so far it wasn't working.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And I'm like, oh,
that's sad.
rough.
That's rough. So the gate thumped shut. So Sereni and the nobles are gone.
Yep.
They've packed up and left.
So Marishi, Kurata, and Galadon show up, and there's these crates that they left. Sereni and everybody just kind of left these crates in the courtyard, and it's full of their material.
Yeah.
And the last few times this has happened, they've just carried the boxes all the way back to New Elantris.
Yeah.
It's been a little rough.
Which we don't have like a distance there, so we have no idea like how far, because Elantris is a big city.
Yeah.
Like imagine, I don't know, if you've been to. The easiest for us is like Salt Lake.
I was actually thinking Phoenix, but I don't think it's quite
maybe not
that
that big, but still, they describe it as pretty huge. Like they say, Kai next to it just looks like a tiny little village.
But Kai's not, and so like it's got to be pretty big.
So I'm imagining they probably had to like carry those boxes of mile and a half
at least,
maybe 2 miles. Yeah, a couple miles. Anyways,
because and that's my issue here, I guess. When they talk about like moving around Elantris, it doesn't seem that big.
Yeah.
But whenever Brandon writes about Elantris from like an outside perspective, it's like, oh, it's
huge. It's magnificent. But yeah, Kai looks so tiny next to it.
Yeah, but then it's like, oh yeah, let's just walk over to the market district and look at Sheor's men.
Yeah.
It feels like when he's talking about it when you're inside the city, it feels pretty small.
Yeah, because he never like gives any distance or time duration for the traveling. They're never like,
and they walked for an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's never like 30 minutes later they arrived at the market district or anything like that. So we just don't really know, but we know it's
walked a while.
We know it's been rough. And so to combat this, Marishi made like a makeshift sled.
Yeah, they took a piece of sheet metal.
Yeah.
And then tied like 3 ropes to the front of it. And they're
sheet metal that they got from Sereni.
Yeah, from the last shipment.
Because they asked for metal, and she gave them sheets pounded so thin that it almost seemed like they would float down if you dropped them.
Yeah.
So, kind of funny there.
Yes, because that's what Sereni's been doing. They've been giving instructions as to what they need. Sereni's been giving it to them in the most inconvenient way possible.
Yes.
And so that was one of them. They asked for like 20 sheets of metal, and she gave them 20 paper thin sheets of metal.
Yeah. So they get back to New Elantris, and they open them up.
Well, in getting there, I wanted to mention this. The sled works pretty well.
Yep.
Right? There was some like hesitation about it beforehand. Some like, is that going to work? And most of it came from Galadon. He was like,
yeah,
a sled? And he was like, yeah, it'll work. And Galadon grunted, obviously biting off some sarcastic comment. And then it works. You know, they get back. And he said, Galadon, in regards to Marishi, goes, he finally did something useful. And I had to pause there. And I was like, Galadon, where are your shoes from?
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, Marishi's been extremely helpful.
He has. Now, did you read the next 2 sentences?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Not until after I made this mark, though.
Oh, okay.
I stopped.
So you're pulling a me. You did a me. You didn't read the full paragraph. But yes. Continue.
But it does say Marishi snorted. Raoden could see the pleasure in his eyes. Galadon stubbornly refused to acknowledge the little man's ingenuity. The Dula complained that he didn't want to further inflate Marishi's ego, something Raoden figured was just about impossible. So yes, but still,
yes.
Don't act like this sled is the first useful thing Marishi has done, okay?
Because it's not.
It's not.
It's just not. So
they open the boxes.
And the first box they opened contained several bales of cloth. Oh, wow. That's nice. Cloth. They haven't.
Which is what they asked for.
Yeah, that's what they asked for. They haven't had it. They want to make
some new clothes.
They want to make new clothes. Now, unfortunately, all of this cloth was sickeningly bright orange, which I wrote, they must have gotten it from Ahane.
For those of you who don't understand the reference, in the I think it was just last week's chapters,
maybe,
somebody commented on one of Ahane's outfits and said, like, I didn't know that they made that color of orange.
Yeah.
So yes, this is probably Ahane's orange.
I wonder if they have another box of cloth, because this says like all of it was orange, but we learn later that like they have pink and blue cloth.
I'm gonna assume that was from previous shipments.
Okay. I feel like if they had it in previous shipments, they would have changed.
Specified.
Yeah, they would have changed their. I think it's all in this shipment. I just think they might have another box of it.
I don't know, because like literally in just a second, Raoden and Galadon change into a new set of clothes. So
you're right.
Assuming that like they've got to already have some and
the ones before are actually patterns, so I wonder if they say like
plain
one color, or something like
plain
that.
Cloth.
Yeah, plain cloth or something. I don't know. Anyways, Raoden is smiling.
Yeah,
because he enjoys to see the way that Serene like spites them with these shipments.
Yes.
Anyways, I thought it's funny.
So they open the next box,
and
Raoden has told them, or just told them, like, I'm just enjoying seeing the way she finds to spite us. And so Galadon opens this box. He's like, you're gonna love this then,
So since their sheets of metal were so thin and light, they decided to ask for steel by weight. So they said, we want this much weight in steel. And so what does Serene give them?
Nails, which are useful.
Bent nails,
which are not useful.
A little less useful, but they still seem to use them.
Yeah, they have a blacksmith.
Yes.
Eonic, which is Eon, which is the same as Eondale.
Yep.
Which is willpower and endurance. But he's one of the few people that hasn't left New Elantris. He's still there. So assuming they can probably melt these down and reforge them or do something. I'm assuming. I don't know how they accomplish that, but
I think later we hear they're just like find a way to unbend them.
Okay.
And they use them in like building stuff.
Interesting.
But I don't know. Maybe they use it for more, but that's all I remember them using them for. They also asked for food, and the food was stale.
But still edible.
Still edible. And then they asked for oil, and when this oil burned, it gives off a pungent smell.
Yeah.
So just kind of fun things from Serene there.
Just fun things from Serene. They specifically stated that the food had to be edible, so that's why it is still edible.
Yeah.
And then it says here, at least she hasn't figured out why we demand wooden boxes.
Yeah.
Which is great on their part. Like, that's one of the one-ups that they're getting on Serene, because all of the wood in
Elantris is rotted.
Yeah. So
squishy.
They're getting these wooden boxes, and that's helpful for them. They can pull them apart and use them for a multitude of purposes, it says.
Yeah. Galadon has a funny line. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if she left them unsanded just to give us splinters. Yes. If that woman was your fate, Suli, then Domai blessed you by sending you to this place.
Which is hilarious.
I think it's funny because I feel like a lot of people do see Serene that way.
Yeah.
But Raoden doesn't.
No.
Like, Raoden actually really, really enjoys everything she's been doing.
Mm-hmm. Which is crazy.
Because
I wouldn't.
I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I think she's intelligent, and I think it's a fun little game. But I would probably be leaning more towards Galadon's point of view than Raoden's.
Yeah. So, is there anything else in this little section you want to talk about?
Nope.
Okay, moving on. They go to find Karada, and they find her stitching up a wound on Saolin's sword arm. And it's a pretty big one. It goes like all the way down his arm.
Yeah.
So they walk up to those, and Raoden's kind of like, what happened, And he said he got it fighting off Sheor's men, and that Sheor's men have changed.
Yes.
And this is bad news.
Very bad news.
But with a silver lining. Because this is eventually what, like, Raoden realizes they can change and that they're starting to think more and they're not just beasts. And this is how he eventually gets some of them to change sides.
Yes. One thing it says here, they're looking around like New Elantris and how like empty it is. They've got clean homes that are no longer inhabited and whatnot. And Galadon here just says, sad, Golo. Like, it's sad, isn't it? And Raoden says, yes, it had potential, if only for a week. And Galadon says, we'll get there again, Suli. And I was like, optimism?
Huh?
From Galadon?
Oh,
What is that?
Rare optimism moment.
Rare optimism moment from Galadon.
Let me apologize. I did skip that whole section.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, it's okay.
I'm glad you jumped back to it because there is
Yeah.
something in here I want to mention.
Oh, okay.
There.
Before that.
Okay. No, go for it.
No, it just says there were barely 20 people remained.
Yes.
So they had about 100, and barely 20 remain, not including the Hoid and the children.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're sitting numbers wise in New Elantris. Now go ahead.
So Galadon says they're talking about the food and like how the people are taking the 3 meals that Sereni's giving them, and it's gone in a few minutes.
Yes.
And Raoden's kind of like, I was wondering like if our stomachs would explode from like eating that much food that quickly and stuff. And he mentions that Elantrians, when Elantrians' bellies are filled, the digestive system starts to work again.
Right.
To which I said, Elantrians poop.
Yes.
Which was a question I had, I think, in our first episode of Elantris, is do Elantrians need to use the bathroom?
Right.
They do.
They do. I had that question. I don't think I voiced it, but I had that question when it talked about Elantrians not sweating.
Right.
When it said they are not sweating, I kind of had that same question. It was like, if they don't sweat, do they poop?
Yeah, they do.
They do.
I mean, it doesn't explicitly say that they poop, but it says that their digestive systems work.
Yeah.
Which means they poop.
Because that's how the digestive system works.
Elantrians poop. In case you were wondering. Now we can move on.
I wasn't wondering.
You literally just said you were wondering.
Anyways, move.
So
they go change.
They go change into their new clothes. And
and then they go find Karada stitching up a wound on Saolin's sword.
Right. So they find Karada stitching up a big gash in Saolin's sword arm, and it's pretty big. It goes
did that bit.
It goes like the entire arm. And he talks about how Sheor's men got to him and how that they're changing. And this is like really bad news, except it has a sorry guys, I'll stop now. Anyways, so they're talking about whether like the bestial stuff is an act, and if Sheor's men are like acting to be bestial.
Yeah.
And Raoden's kind of just like, no. Like, yes, but like, no. He's saying it's just like their way of dealing with the pain.
Yeah. Kind of like Andon coming in and deciding to be crazy.
Yes.
Sheor's men have just decided to revert back to a more bestial
Yeah.
form.
We get a tiny little Karada backstory here. It says that because she was stitching up Salen's arm.
Okay.
And they were saying it was very expert. Like she was doing it very well. And it just says she had met her husband while serving as a nurse for a small mercenary group, which is like a little tidbit that's kind of like cool.
That is interesting.
Like she has a lot more in her past than we had known before. Because before she was just a wife of a soldier
in King Iadon's house.
And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
But a nurse in a mercenary group?
Interesting.
Kind of cool. Anyways, they're talking about
what to do about Sheor's men.
Yeah, and they're like, if they get through, you know, like even if they don't kill anybody, King Iadon's gonna come through and slaughter them.
Yeah.
And Galadon says with an evil twinkle in his eyes, "Isn't that what we want, Sully?" Brandon's like, "Definitely not. No,
nope,
sir.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Definitely not." Because he does say, I think Princess Serene, and Raoden has kind of figured this out. I think Princess Serene has a secondary purpose behind this trial of her.
Yes.
She brings different nobles with her every day as if she wanted to acclimatize them to Elantris. And then Karada's like, well, what good is that going to do? And Raoden's like, I don't know. I don't know why she's doing it. This is what she's doing.
Am I Serene, Karada?
This is what I've seen. I don't know. But yeah. We'll just have to keep Sheor's men away until Serene is done. And Galadon's like, oh, well, when's that gonna be?
I don't know. Am I Serene, Galadon? And so Galadon's like, well, you better make her stop soon.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Either that or prepare her to deal with several dozen ravenous maniacs. Kolo?
Raoden nodded. So we then jump to Raoden practicing his Aeons, which we learn that he does every single day for a couple hours.
Yes.
Despite, you know, Galadon basically being like, why even do that? Like, it's pointless.
Because they don't work.
But now this is interesting.
Okay.
When Raoden is practicing his Aeons, he feels the pain less. Now, wait, I know what you're going to say. I know you're going to doubt.
Okay.
There's two lines of thought here. One,
I can see both.
I can see both as well. Now, let me explain them to them so that they're not lost. One line of thought is that he is doing something he enjoys and something he finds purpose in, so he's feeling the pain less.
Right.
That's probably the more realistic, obvious answer.
Okay.
The other line of thought is the Aeons he's drawing is slightly releasing a tiny bit of door, which would then lessen the door trying to escape through him, which means it would lessen his pain. Did you have another line of thought?
I have another line of thought.
Okay, three lines of thought.
Which I didn't have until, like, you started talking about lines of thought.
Okay.
Because when I was reading through it, I was just like, oh, like, it's just a psychological thing. He just, you know, is just feeling like paying less attention to it because he's doing something that he likes.
Okay.
My other line of thought would be his door attacks come from, like, the door, obviously, trying to flow through him. For some reason, Raoden has been selected by the door.
Right.
Much in the same way that Vin was selected by Ruin. And was being influenced by him, you know?
Right.
With that being the case, I'm wondering if the door lessens its strength and, like, lessens his pain when he's on the right track. So that's like a third line of thought is like, he's practicing the Aeons, he's getting close to, like, uncovering the secret, the pain lessens.
Now, for that to be a viable line of thought, we would have to make the jump that the door
is conscious.
in some way conscious.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't have. I'm not. It's not like it's gaining sentience,
Right.
but
But
in
it's got
some way it
intent.
has an intent to do something, which then makes my theory of the door vision more viable. Nah, nah, nah. Now, you don't have to say anything because we're going to get even more of this. Okay?
I actually love everything we learn here through all of this. Did you have something about Aeon Tia that you wanted to talk about?
I did. So he's practicing his Aeon Tia, and it's talking about the different modifiers that he's doing to it.
Right.
And he draws 4 Aeons on the side, and he says they are to da 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 da.
To delineate the exact distance it was to send him.
Thank you. And we know the distance he is delineating is 10 body lengths away.
Right.
Now, I assume one of these Aeons is going to be a direction.
Okay.
So it could be, what are the 4? Aeon KE,
Yeah.
or, one of the direction Aeons.
Yeah.
I assume one of them is a number, which means we have Aeons that represent numbers. Like, do we have
Aeon
1, Aeon 2, Aeon 3?
Would Aeon be 1?
It could be because it's
first.
Aeon first.
Yeah.
So it could be, and there could be, subsequent. One of them's probably Aeon. Crap. I should have written it down. I'm dumb for it. There's an Aeon that talks about the body.
Okay.
So Aeon Ito is body, flesh, or muscle. Since he's going 10 body lengths,
Yeah.
I assume one of the Aeons is probably Aeon Ito.
Now,
maybe.
is body length a standard measurement, or is it 10 of his body length?
Well, it does. Yeah, that could be the 4th Aeon, maybe, saying mine.
Yeah.
Or that could just be within Aeon Ito, he does another modifier specifying himself. Because he specifies himself through a line saying, like, affect me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought it was interesting to maybe dive in to how complex the Aeons actually are. And this one isn't even that complex.
No, he says compared to the healing Aeon that he's seen in the book, like this one's pretty basic.
Yes, he makes a line. This is mostly what I wanted to talk about, though. He makes a line.
A series of lines crossing the top instructed the Aeon to wait to take effect until he tapped its center.
Yes.
Okay.
That one. Because we had the question about, like, Aeons, like, when people used Aeon Tia before, it was like, oh, they would go to this carved Aeon Tia and put their hand over it, and then they would vanish. And we were like,
right.
Oh, like, what makes it? Is it a proximity thing? Is it whatever? And I just saw this, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
it's probably something similar to where, hey, when an Elantrian or it's still the question on whether, like, a normal human would be able to use Aeon Tia like the Elantrians do. But I saw that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's probably it. Like, there is a modifier that says, hey, wait till I do this before you activate it.
Yeah.
That's mostly what I wanted to bring up.
I feel like that's got to because the power for Aeon Door doesn't come from the Elantrians. It comes from the door. It comes from the cognitive realm. That's what's fueling their bodies even.
Yes.
So it's not like allomancy where only like the allomancer can use that power, like Aeon Door comes from the door from the cognitive realm, and it is the drawn Aeon that lets it channel. and only Elantrians can draw Aeons, but I feel like if an Elantrian draws an Aeon Tia and says, wait till somebody taps it in the center, and a regular human comes and taps it, that it'll function. Because it's not like the Elantrian, because we've speculated before, like, oh, an Elantrian has to feed it power for it to work, but that's just not true. Because the Aeon itself is the gateway for power to be released.
It's just hard because we don't know as much as we would like to about this power system.
Yeah.
I still feel like only an Elantrian would be able to use it. Like, because we know Elantrians, like, spirit webs are different. I wonder if it's just like, there's just something there, you know, that Elantrians have that normal people don't, that I feel like would be necessary to use.
Yeah.
But
Jake and I just have different headcanons on
it's all speculation.
Yeah.
And like, maybe, like, hopefully once the second book comes out, we get some answers, Brandon, because like there's so many of like, I don't know how Aeondor actually works.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell you what we know from Elantris from this book, but in speculating like that sort of thing, it's impossible to say until Brandon writes it, pretty much. Anyways, we can move on.
So yeah, Raoden asks Yaladon how the crops are doing, and he's like, well, they'll live, but we're gonna need some fertilizer. You should have Karada send for some in the next order. And Raoden's like, we can't do that. Like, if Iadon thinks that we're raising our own crops, there's gonna be problems. He's like, okay, we'll send for some dung then. And Raoden's like,
obvious.
That's way too obvious. Like, if we're asking for dung, obvious what we want it for. And Galadon's like, well, ask for some fish then. And this is one of the times that they get another one over on Serene. Because I think when she sends them the fish, she sends rotted fish.
Yeah, which is exactly what they want.
Exactly what they want and need. So anyway.
Moving on, they are talking about the book that Raoden has been studying, the Aeon's book. And he talks about...
I love this. Right before that, they are talking about Aeontia, and like how precise you need to be. And this is one of the things that we're gonna get to later in the book. And Brandon has already addressed this in A Words of Brandon, and already like understands all the skepticism about this. And I'm not gonna sit here and call Brandon out and whatnot, but I'm going to sit here and call Brandon out. It says you have to be very precise about the distance it sends you. If you tell it to transport you exactly 10 feet, it will do so. No matter what happens to be 10 feet away, you could easily materialize in the middle of a stone wall. And so, like, Aeontia is going to send you precisely the distance that you tell it to.
Yeah.
And they use it later in the book to send them thousands of miles. And they do that by measuring somebody's stride and telling it to send them X amounts of this stride. And that's just crazy.
Yes, because if they were off on that measurement by even a quarter of an inch, that multiplied by millions, they could have been off quite a bit.
Yeah, thousands of miles.
Yeah, so it's a little iffy at the end there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to do the math again, because we've already done the math on it. Like, how far they would have had to be off on the measurement of their stride to go how far. I'll redo that math, and we'll discuss it when that happens in the podcast. But I thought it was interesting.
It is very interesting. So, because of that, the book mentions that Aeontia is one of the more dangerous Aeons.
Yes.
It's because it's so easy to mess up and kill yourself, pretty much. So they're talking about the book, and Galadon's like, "Are you learning stuff from it? Are you learning, son?" And Raoden is like, here and there, like, just kind of hints, and then he talks about Dilof's wife. Okay, he brings up a case,
and this is so important.
This is
so important.
It's crazy how important it is.
Yeah.
Like, Raoden was already, like, getting there. Like, he was understanding Aeons and, like, why they weren't working. But just from this case alone, it just tells you.
It tells you exactly.
It tells you exactly what the problem is, and Raoden just has to connect the last dot.
Yeah.
Which Serini does for him.
Yeah.
But this is also crazy important because now when you first read this, you don't know this is Dilof's wife.
Right. We don't learn that until the end of the book.
But we know it's Dilof's wife now, and so we know this is the reason Dilof hates Elantris so much. And pretty much his whole reason for being just the worst all the time. So we learned that 10 years ago, or 10 years before the Riode. Go ahead.
10 years before the Riode. Which means Dilof had to have been living in close enough proximity to Arelon. Because we were speculating, like, last episode, how long has Dilof been in Arelon?
Right. I don't think so. I know what you're about to say, but his wife, she didn't become Riode because she was turning into an Elantris.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
We were speculating that Dilof had just gotten to Arelon like 6 months prior to the events of this book.
Right.
And we were speculating on like how he has the faith and like devotion of all the artists of the chapel and all this stuff.
Yes.
But this, this happened 20 years ago. Has Dilof been here that whole time?
I don't think so. When I read this, I assumed that they made the trip.
Okay.
His wife had, what was it? Palsy.
Yeah. Palsy.
For palsy. And Dilof, because I'm sure the Elantrians were not I'm sure similar to Iadon, the Elantrians were not Dilof's first choice.
No, he tells us later in the book that
he
was
tried
last-ditch effort.
Yeah. So I assume last-ditch effort, he was somewhere else. They traveled.
Okay.
Maybe. All right. He could have been in Arelon, but I just don't think so because he was the head of the monastery.
I just feel like the head of a monastery hasn't just been chilling in Arelon for 20 years.
So I don't think so. I think, and on the point that how has he gotten all of this loyalty from the priests, the Ardets?
Yeah.
I talked to you after last week's episode because I had thought of a way how.
Yeah.
And it's that he actually brought people from the monastery and planted them in the
priesthood.
The chapel.
Yeah.
And then when Hrathen is weeding through them, of course all of the best Fjorden people would have been from the monastery, so they wouldn't have gotten sent away.
Yeah.
So
I think I like that.
I do like it
that
bit.
That idea, that thought process. So back to the book.
So I'm just gonna read it because it's honestly the easiest way.
Yeah.
So Raoden is like, there's some stuff he's learning. Like in this case, about 10 years before the Riode, a man, Dilof, brought his wife to Elantris to receive treatment for her palsy. However, the Elantrian healer drew Aeon Ain slightly wrong. And instead of just vanishing, the character flashed and bathed the poor woman in a reddish light.
Ooh.
Which we don't hear about any other light like this. And it's just so,
that's crazy.
It's such a one-off line that, what?
Yeah.
Because the aeons that they are currently drawing that aren't complete aren't doing this. They aren't flashing red.
No.
So you would think that, because it's basically the same thing. He's drawing an aeon, but it doesn't have a vital line. You would think that it would act similar to how the aeons they're drawing now are, but it doesn't. It acts differently.
I'm wondering if it has anything to do, because right now they're drawing incomplete aeons, and the aeon of Elantris itself is incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when this happened, the aeon of Elantris, which amplifies the power,
yeah,
is complete, and they drew an incomplete aeon. So there was still power, from the Elantris.
Right. It was still getting amplified enough that it shone through.
Yeah.
So basically, this reddish light then leaves black splotches on her skin and limp hair that soon fell out, basically making her Rioed.
Elantrian.
But it's interesting because, like, does it make her a Rioed Elantrian?
I don't think so, because and here's kind of my thought process on it. Let's finish this, and then I'll talk about my thought process.
Okay.
So he asked Galadon, like, does that sound familiar? And Galadon, like, raises his eyebrow. Raoden says she died a short time later. She threw herself off a building screaming that the pain was too much. Which,
Yeah.
like, that just feels like a Rioed Elantrian.
Yeah, it feels like... Well, no, let's finish because we might answer our own question.
So Galadon asks, like, what did the healer do wrong?
And he's like, he left out one of the 3 basic lines, a foolish error, but it shouldn't have had such a drastic effect. It's almost like the Aeon wasn't completed, right?
Kolo. So maybe the healing began but couldn't finish because its instructions weren't complete. What if the mistake still created a viable Aeon, one that could access the door, but couldn't provide enough energy to finish what it started?
Like, what are you implying? Raonen's like, that we aren't dead, my friend. We're basically just trapped in some kind of half transformation. The process began, but something blocked it. It was just like in that woman's healing. The door is still within us, waiting for the direction and the energy to finish what it started.
Yep. Galadon says, I don't know that I follow you. And Raoden says, that's why our bodies never heal. It's like we're trapped in the same moment of time, frozen like a fish in a block of ice. The pain doesn't go away because our bodies think time isn't passing. They're stuck waiting for the end of their transformation. Our hair falls away and nothing new grows to replace it. Our skin turns black in the spots where the shadow began, then halted as it ran out of strength. Galadon's like, seems like a leap to me. Like, and Raoden, he concurs. He's like, it is.
It's a leap.
He's like, it is, but I'm sure it's true. And I'm like, wild. Now, Raoden's right.
Yes.
Perfectly. Like,
yes.
to a T.
That's exactly what's happening.
Exactly what's happening. And again, I'm just sitting here like, what did I write down here? I was like, I wrote on the bottom of this page, like, wow, come on, Brandon. Like, literally just like handing us the answer to the end of the book. So, thoughts.
Okay. Let me go back over to here. It's almost as if whatever Aeon or because we don't know what makes an Elantrian, right?
Right.
We've speculated that it was some sort of complex Aeon, maybe in Elantris, like we just don't know. And so it seems like
they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. It seems like with the amplified power that Elantris was providing, any Aeon that is done wrong would have this effect on someone, would freeze their body, essentially making them Rioed.
I won't say any Aeon. I feel like this was a like transformative Aeon. In a sense, like, I don't think Aeon Tia would cause the same effect.
Really?
Yes.
I almost feel like it. I feel like if it was an Aeon directed towards a person.
Okay.
The door, because it's explained here, well, Raoden's speculating, but he says, like, the door is within us. Mm-hmm. So how I'm assuming Aeon door is working is it's channeled through an Aeon, and if it's towards a person, the door would then enter the person, make whatever changes, and then leave the body.
In this case, yes. For an Elantrian, right. No, right? Because the door is what sustains them
right
past their Shaod.
So if you were to say, hey, Aeon Tia, transport my buddy here who's not an Elantrian, and it was incomplete. They missed one of the 3/4 basic lines. The door would enter their body to transport them.
I guess you're probably right.
So I think it would have to be an Aeon that targets a body in some sort.
Yeah, so like the Aeon to call water.
Right.
You're not going to make a Riode.
Yeah, Aeon Aishi. It's a light. It's not going, if you mess that one up, it wouldn't turn whoever into a Riode person.
Right. But where this Aeon was specifically like a transformative Aeon for this person that was going to enter them, infuse them with door, heal.
Yes.
And that was the intent of the Aeon. With the missing line,
the door enters them, does not have enough direction to do the intended purpose, and Riodes them, is how I'm taking it.
That's kind of how I'm taking it too, which just asks more questions than it answers.
There's a big problem with Brandon's works, and he's going to have to figure out a way, because almost every single one of his books leads to more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
And it's bad. And like, if he keeps doing that, eventually it's
gonna die. And they're all gonna remain unanswered.
Here's the thing. He has to be able to figure out a way to answer these questions before the end of the Cosmere. Because it's going to, if the end of the Cosmere happens and then we're left with all these questions, like what, are we just words of Brandoning it until he dies?
Yeah.
Is he going to release his personal wiki that he uses to write the books? Because like, we have a Brandon wiki, but it's only things from the books and things from Words of Brandon.
Right.
Brandon himself has a catalog. I don't know what the word would be.
Yeah.
He has a humongous pinboard with strings going all over it, connecting everything. Like, is he going to show us that before the end of the Cosmere? Because it's either that or he's going to have to answer all these questions through his books or through Words of Brandon.
Or he
dies.
Yeah, he could just leave them unanswered. Like, here's my question. How Elantrians are made.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that's really a question that Brandon cares to answer? Like, we're freaking out about it.
He has to.
But like,
I think if he leaves that specific question, because that is like a big.
That one's pretty big.
That one's pretty big.
But there's a lot of questions that just aren't, that I would love an answer to, that just aren't important.
Like, we probably won't get an answer to the Riode. Like, in the sense of like, why did this incomplete Aeon make her a Riode person?
Yeah.
Like, we just speculated on like what we think would is happening, but I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer for that specific question.
Yeah, but the question it raises for me is, why are Elantrians Riode?
Well, this is kind of we're speculating on whether like an Aeon is transforming people.
Uh-huh.
So like that Aeon is then incomplete, and when it activates whatever happens to activate it, it activates and it's targeting this person's body.
Yeah.
That's why they're Riode?
Yes. But when they complete the Aeon of Elantris, all of the Riode Elantrians become full Elantrians, which would make my thought process like, okay, and it's Aeon Reo is the Aeon that gets completed when they complete the Elantris Aeon.
Yes.
It is not, because Aeon Ile is also in Elantris. However, that one does not get completed with the Chasm line when Raoden comes and draws it.
Nope.
Because Aeon Ile has multiple Aeons in it.
Yes.
And so I don't think you can complete Aeon Elay with just one chasm line.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to add a chasm line to each of the Aeons.
Yeah.
And so it's Aeon Reo that is this Aeon that is supplying them with this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were Elantrians before Elantris.
Yes.
And so my question is like, and this is, we're not going to get into it. We're already like way over time and we still have 9 more pages to get through in this chapter. But what is causing that, and how does completing Elantris, fulfill that to a point? It's just there's just a lot.
Right. So basically, if you didn't follow that, we're
I
wondering.
didn't even follow.
We're wondering. Elantrians were taken by the Sheod before Elantris and the surrounding cities were built. Raodin completes the Aeon Reo, that Elantris and the surrounding cities create. And when he completes that, the Elantrians are healed.
Right.
But we know that specific Aeon that Raodin completes is not the reason people turn into Elantrians.
Correct.
So Jackson's question is basically, why does that being completed heal them when it's not the original Aeon that made them Reod?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. My guess is
because we know that Elantrians existed before Elantris was built. They built Elantris as a focal point because with that Aeon Reo, their power grew stronger and they were able to use their power to a bigger effect, because that was the Aeon Reo is spirit or spiritual energy.
Yes.
And so it is providing more door for their magic system.
Yes.
But, and here's my thing is, I understand to an extent the Reod causing current Elantrians to fall, because they have been infused by so much door for so long that they've become savants in a sense. And so when the Reod happens and Aeon Reo no longer works, I can see current Elantrians falling because they've been used to that level of investiture. But when the Sheod takes somebody new, they're not used to that level of investiture. I know their spirit web changes to be a quote-unquote savant, but again, there were Elantrians before that Aeon.
So Jax is spewing out like
lots of words.
He's saying, I'm very confused about all of this.
Yeah.
Here's what I will say. I think you don't need whatever Aeon that changed them into Elantrians to be fixed.
Okay.
I think all you need is the door. Now, here's the thing. This is contradicting what we just said, is that the Aeon isn't having like a direction, and that's part of why they become Reod, is they don't have the full instructions to do what it's intended to do. I think it's imperfect writing.
Okay, on Brandon's part.
On Brandon's part.
Okay.
For just to like get it out of the way, I think it's imperfect writing. This was Brandon's first work, and it's just like, it's not making sense because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Because we're trying to pick it apart too much.
Because we're trying to pick it apart, but hey, it's a deep dive podcast. What do you want? Here's what I'm thinking. I think when Raodin fixes Aeon Reo and there's that big burst of door that comes out, all that door finds Elantrians. The Elantrians have enough door that they're healed.
So here's what I'm going to say. This Aeon turned Dilof's wife into a Reod person.
Yes.
But not a Reod Elantrian.
Yes.
So she was that way because she was not being fed by the door. But Aeon Reo will feed an Elantrian by the door in Elantris. So I'm going to say the Aeon or whatever it is that causes the Sheod. I'm going to say if it is an Aeon, probably still broken, probably still doesn't complete the transformation, but the Aeon Reo of Elantris probably provides enough energy to complete the transformation. Whereas this person, after that original Aeon, didn't, had no connection to that, didn't get that spiritual.
So that Aeon Reo wouldn't have provided them any extra door to fix the lack.
Yes. Now, however, if it's not an Aeon that causes Elantrians to change, which we don't know that it is,
no clue,
then it's a moot point.
Yes.
Except it's not.
There's so much.
It's so convoluted
to consider here, and we just don't have enough information to really do it. Here's what I'm gonna say. This is now
we're gonna table this until book 2.
Yes. Let me just this is Coppermind into the Coppermind headcanon. Reod Elantrians and Reod people are that way because they were not provided with enough door to complete whatever. And since Aeon Reo just pretty much provides door, that's why it healed them, is because it gave them enough door to complete the transformation.
You guys good with that?
Good.
All right, wrap it up. That's the episode for the week.
Moving on. We get heavy Galadon backstory here. How far into this episode are we?
We're about an hour and 25 minutes. However, we didn't start until 5 minutes in. So
I'm not going to cap with you. I say we put the rest of this chapter in the next episode.
I feel like you're probably right. I feel like we stop here. Do you want to do our Words of Brandon segment?
I do.
Okay.
So Serene's and Hrathen's chapters are pretty short. Hrathen's is literally 2 pages. So we're going to leave the rest of this chapter for part 2. And we're going to jump into our segment. What did he say?
What did he say?
This is our Words of Brandon segment where we go back and forth asking each other words of Brandon, and we have to answer as if we are Brandon answering. We keep points. The tally is 3 to Jacob, 1 to Jackson, and it is my turn to answer, so it might be 4 to Jacob pretty soon.
Okay. Now, I have a Words of Brandon here.
Okay.
There's 3 consecutive questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to require you to answer all 3 of them.
Oh my
get a point.
Gosh. Okay, that's rude.
I know. But they're all yes or no questions.
Okay.
So it's a 50-50 chance on all 3 of these questions. Okay.
So I have a 12.5% chance of getting a point. Is that right?
I have no idea if that's right.
Because it's like 50-50 and 50-50 of a 50-50 and then a 50-50 of a 50-50, right? Oh, well, it doesn't matter.
Maybe.
Okay. Shoot. Let's go.
Is Nightblood,
oh no,
and Azure's sword,
oh no,
made of the same material?
Now, this really is just a straight up 50-50. Because
so this came from FanX 2024.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty. I'm actually
there is no way. There is 0 way for me to logic this out to be a definitive answer within the books, within canon.
Right.
So it really is just a 50-50. It's just a guess. Is Nightblood and Azure's sword made of the same material?
I read it as they phrased it. I think it should be our Nightblood, but that's fine.
Okay. I mean, there's no reason for me to say no.
Okay.
But there's no reason for me to say yes either.
Right. That's what a 50-50 is.
You're the worst.
Coin flip.
You're the worst.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes, they're made out of the same material.
Okay. So I'm going to give it to you, but you're wrong. But you're right. So that first, I'm not giving you a point yet. You have to answer the other 2 questions.
Okay.
This first question, I would have taken yes or no. Because Brandon's Answer is not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Does he say more? Are you
That's it.
Oh,
So the follow-up question.
okay.
Is Nightblood made of a normal metal? Yes or no?
Ooh. I would almost have to say no. Well, how well can I remember? I was going to say, how well can I remember you mean a Nightmare Painter? And I'm trying to think on whether if that says if like it's a normal metal or not. But
Okay, but I'm pretty sure Azure's sword is also awakened.
yes.
Okay.
But not quite.
Not to the level that
Nightblood is. Well, it could be to the level, but just like the command it was given is not as hungry.
Yeah. Well, you also like just finished the Lost Metal. We see awakened metal in there as well. We see an awakened lock.
Yes. What do they say? I'm going to say no, it is not a normal metal.
Is Nightblood made of a normal metal? Brandon, it is not.
Okay.
Question. Is he made of dragon steel?
My first instinct when you ask that question is he's going to say Raffo.
But you know that we don't
do Raffos. Now, let's get this out of the way. Dragonsteel, the book, is not canon
yet. So there's Dragonsteel Prime.
Yes.
Which has been, it's like online that you can read it. Jacob and I have not read it.
Because Brandon
has asked his readers not to read it.
Don't read it because it'll just because it's not canon.
Yeah.
So I am like, do we learn about Dragonsteel and Isles at all?
Not really.
So like I don't even really know what Dragonsteel is.
Yeah.
I assume it is steel made by dragons.
Okay.
Something similar in that realm. And I just don't see how the five, well, they are world hoppers. So like, I was going to say, I don't see how the 5 scholars could have gotten their hands on Dragonsteel.
Yeah. I think if anybody could have, the 5 scholars could have.
That's true. But I'm going to say no. It is not Dragonsteel.
Questioner, is he made of Dragonsteel? Brandon, good question. He is.
Ah, no!
Not.
Oh, yes! Let's go!
Nightblood is not made of Dragonsteel. It says that he is not anymore made of the same material as Azure's sword, which I assume means Nightblood has changed or evolved.
Yeah.
When they talk about making Nightblood, they talk about awakening steel. So I assume that originally Nightblood was made of steel. I haven't dove into this and verified that.
Okay.
But I assume originally Nightblood was made of steel, which I assume is what Vivenna's sword is made from, Azure's sword. However, Nightblood is no longer that. So
interesting.
It's interesting, but that does take our score, Jacob, up 1 point. It is now 4-1.
Jax, you only have, I would say maybe.
Are we only doing that throughout the book of Elantris?
Well, I think we maybe reset after each book.
Oh, really?
You think? Because, like, I don't want it to end up being like 25-2, you know? You don't have, I'm going to be honest with you. You probably have maybe, let's see, what chapter are we on?
7?
Oh, dang. Never mind. You got a while.
Yeah, we're only halfway through the book.
Okay. That's going to be it for our first part of this episode. Join us at the next part. It'll play right away if you're watching this a week later.
If not, if you're watching this on the 1st, so sorry, guys.
We'll see you next week. Join us as we dive into the Coppermind.
That's a wrap.
That's a half wrap.